Welcome to a gentle journey through time, where we explore the authentic lives of medieval queens, not the romanticized versions of fairy tales, but the real women who navigated the complex world of royal courts between the 10th and 15th centuries. Tonight, we'll discover their daily realities with the soothing pace of historical inquiry, perfect for drifting into peaceful sleep. Picture yourself walking through the stone corridors of a medieval castle, where torchlight flickers against cold walls and tapestries tell stories of generations past. Here, in these halls of power, lived some of history's most fascinating women. Queens, who wielded influence, raised families and managed vast households under conditions we can barely imagine today. Medieval hygiene was vastly different from our modern understanding of cleanliness. Queens, despite their elevated status, lived in a world where bathing was infrequent and often considered potentially harmful to one's health. Medical theories of the time suggested that water could weaken the body by opening pores to disease, so most nobles relied on dry cleaning methods and frequent changes of linen undergarments to maintain what they considered proper hygiene. The morning routine of a medieval queen began before dawn, with servants lighting fires and preparing the royal chambers. Personal attendants would help dress their mistress in layers of clothing. First the camise, then the kirtle, followed by the outer gown. These garments were often worn for weeks without washing, as fabric was expensive and laundering was labor-intensive. Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most powerful women of the 12th century, traveled constantly between her various domains. During these journeys, she would have encountered the same hygiene challenges as any medieval traveler: limited access to clean water, dusty roads, and the need to maintain royal dignity despite uncomfortable conditions. Her daily life included managing not just her appearance, but the complex politics of ruling vast territories. The medieval understanding of dental care was rudimentary at best. Queens and nobles often suffered from severe tooth decay due to diets high in honey and preserved foods. Some used primitive toothpicks made from twigs, while others rubbed their teeth with cloth soaked in wine or vinegar. The wealthy sometimes had access to imported spices like cloves for dental pain, but tooth loss was common even among royalty. Royal women faced unique challenges in maintaining their health and appearance while managing the demands of court life. They often relied on cosmetics made from lead-based powders to achieve the pale complexion that was fashionable, unknowingly poisoning themselves in pursuit of beauty standards. Rouge made from crushed insects and plants added color to their cheeks, while kohl darkened their eyes. Medieval queens were expected to produce heirs, a responsibility that came with enormous physical and emotional strain. Childbirth was dangerous, and many queens died in labor or from complications afterward. Between pregnancies, they managed vast households, supervised the education of their children, and participated in the political life of their kingdoms, all while dealing with the physical discomforts of their era. The royal wardrobe presented its own set of challenges. Heavy brocades and velvets, while luxurious, were difficult to clean and often harbored insects. Furs, prized for their warmth and status, could carry fleas and other parasites. Queens had to balance the demands of fashion with practical considerations, often wearing the same elaborate garments multiple times before they could be properly cleaned. Medieval castle life meant sharing space with numerous servants, courtiers, and visitors. Privacy was a luxury few enjoyed, and personal hygiene was often a communal affair. Royal women bathed in wooden tubs that were laboriously filled with heated water by servants. But such baths were rare occasions, sometimes occurring only a few times per year. The challenge of managing long hair in medieval times was significant for royal women. Elaborate headdresses and veils were not just fashion statements, but practical solutions for containing and concealing hair that was washed infrequently. These head coverings, while beautiful, could become breeding grounds for lice and other parasites, requiring constant vigilance from personal attendants. Medieval medicine offered limited solutions for the hygiene challenges faced by queens. Herbal remedies and aromatic oils were used to mask odors rather than eliminate their sources. Rosewater, lavender, and other fragrant substances were precious commodities that helped make life more pleasant in an era where strong scents were an unavoidable part of daily existence. The royal kitchen was a source of both nourishment and hygiene challenges. Food preservation methods of the time relied heavily on salts, smoke, and spices, creating meals that were often quite different from modern tastes. Queens had to navigate diplomatic dinners and court feasts, while dealing with food that was sometimes spoiled or contaminated, leading to frequent digestive issues. Clothing storage in medieval times was problematic, as garments were often kept in wooden chests, with herbs to deter insects. However, moths and other pests frequently damaged expensive fabrics. Queens had to carefully manage their wardrobes, balancing the need to display wealth and status with the practical realities of textile preservation. The social expectations placed on medieval queens required them to maintain dignity and composure, even when dealing with physical discomfort. They could not show weakness or complaint about conditions that would seem intolerable to modern sensibilities. This stoic endurance was considered a royal virtue, essential to maintaining authority and respect. Royal travel in medieval times presented additional hygiene challenges. Long journeys on horseback or in uncomfortable carriages, sleeping in unfamiliar accommodations, and limited access to clean water made maintaining royal standards of appearance and dignity extremely difficult. Queens developed strategies for managing these challenges while fulfilling their political and social obligations. Medieval queens often suffered from what we now recognize as vitamin deficiencies, particularly during long winters when fresh foods were unavailable. Scurvy, rickets, and other nutritional disorders affected even the wealthy, leading to dental problems, skin conditions, and other health issues that impacted both appearance and comfort. The political nature of medieval queenship meant that these women had to navigate complex social situations while dealing with physical discomfort and health challenges. They conducted diplomacy, managed court intrigue, and made important decisions while enduring conditions that would challenge anyone's patience and composure. Medieval heating systems were primitive, and even royal quarters could be drafty and cold. Queens wore multiple layers of clothing and relied on furs and heavy tapestries for warmth. But these measures also created challenges for cleanliness and pest control. The constant battle between warmth and hygiene was a daily reality. Personal servants played a crucial role in helping queens maintain their appearance and dignity. These attendants, often women from noble families themselves, became experts in creative solutions for hygiene challenges. They developed techniques for spot cleaning, hair management, and clothing maintenance that helped their mistresses present an appropriately regal appearance. The medieval calendar was filled with religious observances and court ceremonies that required queens to appear in public, despite any personal discomfort or hygiene challenges. These occasions could not be postponed for personal convenience, so royal women developed remarkable skills in preparation and presentation under difficult circumstances. Medieval entertainment often took place in close quarters with many people, creating challenging social situations for those dealing with personal hygiene issues. Queens had to participate in dances, games, and other activities, while managing the practical realities of their clothing, health, and comfort in public settings. The role of medieval queens in managing household affairs extended to overseeing the hygiene and health of their entire court. They had to balance personal needs with the responsibility of maintaining standards for hundreds of people living in close proximity, within castle walls. Religious practices of the medieval period sometimes conflicted with practical hygiene needs. Certain times of year required fasting or other observances that could impact health and well-being. Queens had to navigate these spiritual obligations while maintaining their physical health and royal responsibility. Medieval queens often became informal medical practitioners within their households, learning to treat common ailments and injuries with available remedies. This knowledge included understanding which herbs might help with hygiene-related problems and how to manage health issues that arose from the living conditions of their time. The diplomatic aspects of queenship required medieval royal women to host foreign dignitaries and manage international relationships despite any personal discomfort. These political necessities could not be postponed for health or hygiene concerns, requiring remarkable personal strength and adaptability. Seasonal changes presented different challenges for medieval queens throughout the year. Summer brought heat that made heavy court clothing uncomfortable, while winter's cold required layers that complicated hygiene maintenance. Each season demanded different strategies for managing comfort and appearance. Medieval queens often had to manage multiple residences, traveling between castles and courts throughout their domains. Each location presented different facilities and challenges for maintaining personal care routines. Adapting to various living situations was a constant part of royal life. The education of medieval queens typically did not include detailed instruction in health and hygiene management. Many learned through experience and the guidance of older women at court. This informal education system meant that knowledge varied widely and was often based on tradition rather than scientific understanding. Medieval queens participated in hunting expeditions and outdoor activities that were both recreational and politically important. These activities presented additional challenges for maintaining appropriate appearance and dignity while engaging in physically demanding pursuits in outdoor settings. The ceremonial aspects of queenship required participating in elaborate rituals and ceremonies that could last for hours. These occasions demanded physical endurance and the ability to maintain composure despite discomfort, heat, heavy clothing, or other challenging conditions. Medieval queens had to balance the demands of motherhood with their royal duties, often while dealing with health issues related to frequent pregnancies and childbirth. Managing family responsibility alongside court obligations required exceptional organizational skills and physical resilience. The artistic and cultural patronage expected of medieval queens required them to participate in literary, musical, and artistic activities at court. These cultural responsibilities continued regardless of personal health or comfort issues, as they were essential to maintaining the intellectual life of the royal court. Medieval queens often served as informal judges in disputes brought before the royal court. This judicial role required mental acuity and physical presence even when dealing with personal health challenges or discomfort from the living conditions of their time. The correspondence responsibilities of medieval queens were extensive, requiring them to maintain communication with nobles, clergy, and foreign courts. These diplomatic and administrative duties had to continue despite any personal difficulties, as they were essential to effective governance. Medieval queens managed large staffs of servants and courtiers, requiring skills in personnel management and organization. This leadership role was complicated by the challenge of maintaining authority while dealing with the same hygiene and health issues that affected everyone in their time period. The religious obligations of medieval queens included regular attendance at lengthy church services and participation in religious ceremonies. These spiritual duties required physical endurance and appropriate presentation regardless of personal comfort or health concerns. Medieval queens often had to make important financial and administrative decisions for their domains. These responsibilities required clear thinking and careful judgment, even when dealing with physical discomfort or health issues that might have affected their well-being. The social expectations for medieval queens included gracious hospitality toward guests and visitors to their courts. Maintaining these social graces was essential to diplomatic relationships, even when personal comfort or health issues might have made such interactions challenging. Medieval queens participated in seasonal celebrations and festivals that were important to court life and public relations. These events required energy and enthusiasm despite any personal difficulties, as they were crucial to maintaining positive relationships with subjects and allies. The military aspects of medieval queenship sometimes required queens to accompany armies or manage defensive preparations during conflicts. These martial responsibilities had to be fulfilled despite the additional hardships and hygiene challenges of military campaigns. Medieval queens often served as regents during their husbands' absences, taking on full governmental responsibilities. These periods of sole rule required exceptional competence and endurance, as they could not allow personal discomfort to interfere with effective leadership. The economic management responsibilities of medieval queens included overseeing trade relationships and financial planning for their domains. These complex duties required sustained attention and decision-making ability regardless of personal health or comfort issues. Medieval queens had to navigate complex family dynamics and political alliances that often involved arranged marriages for their children. These sensitive negotiations required diplomatic skill and emotional strength. Even when dealing with personal challenge, the intellectual life expected of medieval queens included staying informed about current events, literature, and scholarly developments. Maintaining this level of engagement required mental energy and focus that had to be sustained despite physical discomfort or health issues. Medieval queens often patronized religious institutions and charitable causes, requiring them to maintain active involvement in community welfare. These philanthropic responsibilities were considered essential to royal duty and had to continue regardless of personal circumstance. The architectural and decorative projects overseen by medieval queens required sustained attention to detail and aesthetic judgment. These cultural contributions to their kingdoms had to be managed alongside personal challenges and the demands of daily court life. Medieval queens participated in the education and training of young nobles at their courts, serving as mentors and guides. This educational role required patience and consistency, qualities that had to be maintained despite the physical and social challenges of their era. The diplomatic correspondence of medieval queens often involved delicate negotiations and relationship management across vast distances. These communication responsibilities required careful thought and sustained effort, regardless of personal comfort or health concern. Medieval queens managed seasonal court calendars that included numerous public appearances and ceremonial obligations. These scheduled responsibilities could not be postponed for personal convenience, requiring remarkable dedication to duty despite challenging circumstances. The artistic commissions managed by medieval queens required ongoing supervision and aesthetic judgment. These cultural projects were important to royal legacy and had to be maintained despite the various personal and practical challenges of medieval life. Medieval queens often had to make difficult decisions about resource allocation during times of scarcity or conflict. These leadership challenges required clear thinking and fair judgment, even when personal discomfort might have affected their mood or energy. The legacy of medieval queens includes their remarkable ability to fulfill complex responsibilities while managing the practical realities of their historical period. Their stories remind us that leadership often requires personal sacrifice and the ability to maintain dignity under challenging circumstances. As we conclude our gentle exploration of medieval royal women's lives, we're reminded that these remarkable individuals navigated extraordinary challenges with grace and determination. Their experiences, while different from our own, demonstrate the universal human capacity for resilience and adaptation. Tonight, as you drift into peaceful sleep, perhaps you'll dream of these strong women who shaped history while managing the daily realities of their time. Their stories, told with the softness of historical inquiry, remind us that even in the most challenging circumstances, human dignity and purpose can prevail. In the quiet of your bedroom, far removed from the stone halls and flickering torches of medieval castles, you can rest peacefully knowing that each era brings its own challenges and triumphs. The queens of long ago faced their difficulties with the same human spirit that guides us today, finding strength in duty, purpose, and the hope for better tomorrow. Sleep well, knowing that the gentle lessons of history surround us always, offering both perspective and comfort as we navigate our own daily challenges with the same resilience shown by the remarkable women who wore crowns in ages past. The morning rituals of medieval queens began in chambers where servants had spent hours preparing for their mistress's awakening. These attendants would test the temperature of washing water with their hands, ensuring it was neither too cold nor too warm for royal comfort. The process of dressing could take well over an hour, as each layer of clothing required careful arrangement and adjustment. Medieval queens developed sophisticated systems for managing their appearance, despite limited bathing opportunity. They relied heavily on perfumed oils and aromatic herbs tucked into their clothing and bedding. Sachets of lavender, Rosemary and other fragrant plants were sewn into the linings of garments, creating portable sources of pleasant scents that helped mask the inevitable odors of infrequent washing. The complexity of medieval court etiquette meant that queens had to master numerous social rituals while managing personal discomfort. During formal dining, they were expected to maintain perfect posture and gracious conversation even when dealing with digestive issues from rich foods or the physical constraints of tightly laced garments that restricted breathing and movement. Medieval queens often suffered from what we now understand as chronic health conditions exacerbated by their living conditions. Respiratory problems were common due to smoky fireplaces and poor ventilation in stone buildings. Joint pain from cold, damp environments was another frequent complaint, yet these women continued their demanding schedules without the benefit of effective medical treatment. The seasonal wardrobe changes of medieval queens were elaborate affairs that revealed the practical challenges of their era. Summer garments had to be carefully stored with herbs and spices to prevent insect damage, while winter clothing required frequent airing to prevent the buildup of moisture and odors from layers of wool and fur worn for months at a time. Medieval queens managed their monthly cycles with cloth rags that were washed and reused, a practice that required careful planning and discreet management by trusted servants. These intimate aspects of royal life had to be handled with utmost privacy while maintaining the public schedule of court appearances and official duties that could not be postponed for personal needs. The diplomatic entertaining required of medieval queens meant hosting elaborate feasts where they had to appear gracious and comfortable while potentially dealing with food that was past its prime. Preservation methods of the era were imperfect, and even royal kitchens sometimes served meals that would challenge modern stomachs. Yet queens had to consume these offerings with apparent pleasure for diplomatic reasons. Medieval queens developed remarkable skills in reading social situations and managing interpersonal conflicts while dealing with their own physical discomfort. The close quarters of castle life meant that personal tensions could escalate quickly, requiring diplomatic intervention from the queen even when she might have been feeling unwell or dealing with hygiene challenges. The religious calendar of medieval times imposed additional physical demands on queens, who were expected to participate in lengthy fasting periods and religious observances. These spiritual obligations sometimes conflicted with health needs, particularly for pregnant or nursing queens who still had to maintain appearances of pious devotion despite their physical requirements. Medieval queens often became amateur physicians by necessity, learning to diagnose and treat common ailments within their households. They studied herbal remedies and folk treatments, becoming repositories of medical knowledge that was passed down through generations of royal women who faced similar health challenges. The traveling court lifestyle of many medieval queens meant constantly adapting to different living conditions and hygiene facilities. Some castles had more advanced amenities than others, and queens had to maintain their standards of appearance and behavior regardless of whether they were staying in luxurious accommodations or more primitive fortifications. Medieval queens managed the delicate balance between displaying wealth and dealing with the practical realities of expensive garments that were difficult to clean. Jewelry and elaborate accessories had to be carefully maintained and secured, while fine fabrics required special handling that wasn't always possible during travel or periods of political instability. The educational responsibilities of medieval queens included overseeing the moral and intellectual development of young courtiers, while managing their own ongoing learning. These women were expected to be well-versed in literature, music, and theology, maintaining their intellectual curiosity and cultural sophistication despite the physical challenges of their daily life. Medieval queens participated in hunting expeditions that were both recreational and politically significant, requiring them to demonstrate physical courage and skill while managing elaborate riding attire and maintaining royal dignity in outdoor settings that offered little privacy or comfort for addressing personal needs. The architectural projects commissioned by medieval queens required sustained attention and frequent site visits, exposing them to construction dust, noise, and disruption while they tried to maintain their usual routines of personal care and court obligation. These building projects were important symbols of royal power and cultural patronage. Medieval queens navigated the complex world of court fashion, where appearance conveyed political messages and social status. They had to stay current with evolving styles, while managing the practical difficulties of maintaining elaborate costumes in an era when professional cleaning services were limited and expensive. The correspondence duties of medieval queens required them to maintain elegant handwriting and clear thinking for hours at a time, often while sitting in uncomfortable chairs in poorly lit rooms. These administrative responsibilities were essential to effective governance, but demanded physical endurance that had to be sustained despite personal discomfort. Medieval queens managed large staffs of servants, whose own hygiene and health issues could affect the entire court. They had to balance compassion for their attendants' well-being with the necessity of maintaining standards appropriate to royal households, making difficult decisions about personnel management during times of illness or epidemic. The musical and artistic entertainment expected at medieval courts required queens to participate actively in cultural activities even when they might have preferred rest or privacy. These performances were important for diplomatic relationships and court morale, demanding energy and enthusiasm that had to be summoned regardless of personal feelings. Medieval queens often served as mediators in complex family disputes and political conflicts while dealing with their own stress-related health issues. The emotional toll of constant diplomacy and decision-making was compounded by physical discomfort from their living conditions, yet they had to maintain outward composure and wisdom. The ceremonial aspects of medieval queenship included participation in elaborate religious rituals that could last for many hours in uncomfortable positions. These spiritual obligations were central to royal legitimacy and required physical endurance, particularly during important festivals and holy days when the entire court was watching. Medieval queens managed the practical aspects of castle life, including food storage, textile production, and household sanitation, while maintaining their own standards of personal care. These administrative responsibilities required detailed knowledge and constant attention, even when dealing with their own health challenges. The diplomatic marriage negotiations conducted by medieval queens on behalf of their children required sustained mental acuity and emotional control during discussions that could determine the political future of their kingdom. These negotiations continued regardless of personal comfort, as they were essential to royal strategy. Medieval queens participated in seasonal celebrations and public festivals that were crucial for maintaining good relationships with their subjects. These appearances required careful preparation and sustained energy, even when the queens might have been dealing with illness or other personal difficulties. The military responsibilities of some medieval queens included understanding strategy and logistics, while managing the additional hardships of campaign life. These martial duties required physical courage and mental toughness that had to be maintained despite the challenging living conditions of military camps. Medieval queens often managed multiple households across different territories, requiring constant travel and adaptation to varying standards of accommodation and hygiene facilities. These administrative responsibilities demanded flexibility and resilience that had to be sustained throughout their reigns. The artistic commissions overseen by medieval queens required detailed knowledge of crafts and materials, often involving hands-on supervision of work that exposed them to various substances and working conditions. These cultural projects were important legacies that required sustained attention despite personal discomfort. Medieval queens navigated the complex social hierarchy of their courts, while dealing with their own physical limitations and health challenges. They had to maintain authority and respect among nobles and servants who were dealing with similar difficulties, requiring exceptional leadership skills and personal dignity. The seasonal agricultural cycles that governed medieval life required queens to participate in harvest celebrations and agricultural planning despite whatever personal issues they might have been experiencing. These responsibilities connected them to the economic foundation of their realms and could not be neglected. Medieval queens managed the education and placement of numerous young people at their courts, serving as surrogate mothers and mentors while dealing with their own family responsibilities and health concerns. These nurturing roles required emotional energy and patience that had to be sustained throughout challenging periods. The religious patronage expected of medieval queens required ongoing financial and administrative oversight of churches and monasteries, responsibilities that continued regardless of their personal circumstance. These spiritual investments were considered essential to royal legitimacy and the well-being of their realms. Medieval queens often had to make critical decisions during crises while potentially dealing with their own illness or discomfort. These leadership challenges required clear judgment and decisive action that could not be postponed for personal convenience, demanding remarkable mental discipline and focus. The cultural legacy of medieval queens includes their ability to maintain intellectual curiosity and artistic appreciation while managing the numerous practical challenges of their era. Their patronage of learning and the arts continued despite personal difficulties, contributing lasting benefits to their society. As our journey through the lives of medieval queens draws toward its peaceful conclusion, we see how these remarkable women balanced personal challenges with public responsibility. Their daily experiences remind us that leadership often requires personal sacrifice and the ability to find strength and purpose, even during difficult circumstances. The stories of medieval queens offer gentle lessons about resilience and adaptation that remain relevant across the century. Their ability to maintain dignity and effectiveness while dealing with challenging conditions demonstrates the remarkable capacity of human beings to rise above temporary discomfort in service of larger goals. In the quiet moments before sleep, we can appreciate how these historical figures found ways to create meaning and beauty in their lives despite the limitations of their time. Their experiences remind us that every era presents its own unique challenges and opportunities for demonstrating grace under pressure. Tonight, as you settle into comfortable rest, you carry with you the inspiring example of women who shaped history while navigating the complex realities of their medieval world. Their strength and perseverance offer timeless lessons about finding purpose and maintaining hope even in challenging circumstances. The gentle rhythm of historical narrative can soothe us toward peaceful sleep, knowing that generations of strong women have faced their difficulties with courage and wisdom. Their stories become part of our own understanding of what it means to live with dignity and purpose, regardless of external circumstance. As you drift into dreams, perhaps you'll visit those distant castle halls where queens once walked, carrying their burdens with grace and leaving legacies that continue to inspire us centuries later. Their quiet strength echoes across time, offering comfort and encouragement to all who seek to live with purpose and resilience. Rest peacefully, surrounded by the gentle wisdom of history and the inspiring example of medieval queens who transformed challenges into opportunities for growth, service, and lasting contributions to human civilization. Their stories remind us that every difficulty can become a source of strength when faced with courage and determination. Medieval queens developed ingenious methods for managing their appearance during long winter months, when fresh water was scarce and bathing was particularly challenging. They used dry powders made from ground oatmeal and herbs to absorb oils from their skin and hair, a primitive form of dry shampoo that helped maintain some semblance of cleanliness when water-based washing was impractical. The intimate chambers of medieval queens were often shared spaces where privacy was a luxury rarely achieved. Personal attendants slept nearby, ready to assist with nighttime needs, while guards remained within earshot for security. This constant presence of others meant that even the most personal aspects of hygiene and health had to be managed with discretion and careful planning. Medieval queens faced unique challenges during their monthly cycles, relying on thick cloth padding that had to be discreetly changed and washed by trusted servants. These intimate necessities required careful coordination to maintain royal dignity while managing natural bodily functions that could not be postponed for state occasions or diplomatic meetings. The elaborate headdresses worn by medieval queens served multiple practical purposes beyond fashion and status display. These intricate head coverings helped contain unwashed hair, provided some protection against lice and other parasites, and offered a degree of warmth in drafty castle halls where heating was inconsistent and often inadequate. Medieval queens often suffered from chronic headaches caused by the weight of their ceremonial crowns and elaborate headdresses, which could weigh several pounds and had to be worn for hours during state function. The physical discomfort of these symbols of power was something they endured silently, as removing such items during ceremonies would have been considered inappropriate. The dining habits of medieval queens required them to navigate complex etiquette while dealing with food that was often heavily spiced to mask spoilage. Strong flavors from pepper, cinnamon, and other expensive seasonings could overwhelm delicate palates, but refusing such costly ingredients would have been seen as ungracious and politically unwise. Medieval queens managed their skincare with limited understanding of dermatology, often using remedies that contained harmful substances like mercury or lead. These treatments, intended to create the fashionable pale complexion of the era, sometimes caused more problems than they solved, leading to rashes, discoloration, and other skin conditions. The seasonal migrations of medieval royal courts meant that queens had to supervise the packing and transport of enormous household goods, including personal items necessary for maintaining hygiene and comfort. These moves involved hundreds of people and could take weeks to complete, during which normal routines were completely disrupted. Medieval queens often dealt with dental problems that were both painful and socially embarrassing, as tooth loss was common even among the wealthy. They used various remedies, including oil of cloves for pain relief, and developed techniques for speaking and eating that minimized the visibility of missing teeth during public appearances. The sleep patterns of medieval queens were frequently disrupted by the demands of castle life, where noise from servants, guards, and other residents continued throughout the night. Quality rest was often elusive, yet they had to maintain energy and mental clarity for the complex decisions and social interactions required of their position. Medieval queens participated in elaborate bathing rituals when such occasions did occur, often sharing these rare experiences with female courtiers and servants. These communal bathing sessions were social events as much as hygiene practices, involving music, refreshments, and conversation that helped strengthen bonds among the women of the court. The management of medieval royal households required queens to oversee the health and hygiene of hundreds of people living in close quarters. They had to make decisions about quarantine during illness outbreaks, manage food safety concerns, and maintain standards of cleanliness that would prevent the spread of disease through their courts. Medieval queens often served as informal medical practitioners for their households, learning to identify symptoms of common ailments and preparing herbal remedies for everything from digestive problems to skin conditions. This medical knowledge was passed down through generations of royal women and was considered an essential skill for effective household management. The ceremonial requirements of medieval queenship included participating in religious processions and outdoor ceremonies, regardless of weather conditions. These events could expose them to rain, snow, or extreme heat, while wearing elaborate costumes that offered little protection from the elements, requiring remarkable physical endurance and mental fortitude. Medieval queens navigated the complex politics of marriage alliances while managing the personal relationships within their own courts. They had to balance loyalty to family members, servants, and political allies, while dealing with their own health challenges and the constant pressure to maintain royal dignity in all circumstances. The artistic and cultural responsibilities of medieval queens included hosting poets, musicians, and scholars, whose presence enriched court life, but also added to the social demands on royal women already managing complex schedules and personal challenges. These cultural obligations were considered essential to royal prestige and could not be neglected. Medieval queens often had to make financial decisions about household expenses while dealing with the practical realities of maintaining their personal needs within budget constraints. Even royal resources had limits, and queens had to balance spending on necessities like soap, oils, and medical treatments with the demands of court entertainment and political obligation. The educational duties of medieval queens included supervising the moral and intellectual development of young women at court, while serving as role models despite their own struggles with the limitations of their era. They had to demonstrate grace, wisdom, and composure while dealing with personal discomfort and health challenges. Medieval queens managed the complex logistics of court entertainment, ensuring that guests were properly accommodated, while maintaining their own standards of appearance and behavior. These social obligations required sustained energy and attention to detail, even when the queens themselves might have been dealing with illness or fatigue. The diplomatic correspondence of medieval queens required them to maintain elegant handwriting and clear thinking, despite potential health issues that might affect their concentration or physical comfort. These communications were essential to maintaining political relationships and could not be delayed for personal convenience. Medieval queens often had to travel long distances for political or family obligations, enduring uncomfortable transportation and primitive accommodation while maintaining their royal dignity and effectiveness. These journeys could take weeks or months, during which their normal routines of personal care were severely disrupted. The religious obligations of medieval queens included regular confession and spiritual counseling, which required them to discuss personal matters including health concerns with male clergy. These intimate conversations had to be navigated carefully to maintain both spiritual authenticity and royal privacy. Medieval queens balanced their roles as mothers with their public responsibilities, often nursing infants and caring for young children, while managing the demands of court life. The physical and emotional challenges of motherhood had to be integrated with their duties as political leaders and social figures. The seasonal celebrations managed by medieval queens required them to coordinate elaborate festivities while dealing with their own personal needs and health concerns. These events were crucial for maintaining court morale and political relationships, demanding sustained attention and energy regardless of personal circumstance. Medieval queens often became arbitrators in disputes between servants and courtiers, requiring them to make fair judgments while managing their own relationships within the complex social hierarchy of castle life. These leadership responsibilities demanded wisdom and patience even during periods of personal difficulty. The military aspects of medieval queenship sometimes required queens to make strategic decisions during conflicts, while potentially dealing with the additional stress and health challenges that warfare brought to their territory. These responsibilities could not be postponed and required clear thinking under extreme pressure. Medieval queens managed the practical aspects of food preservation and storage for their households, ensuring adequate supplies for large numbers of people while dealing with the limitations of preservation technology. These administrative duties required detailed knowledge and constant attention to prevent waste and ensure food safety. The artistic patronage of medieval queens involved ongoing relationships with craftspeople and artists, whose work required supervision and financial management. These cultural investments were important to royal legacy, but demanded sustained attention and decision-making ability. Even during periods of personal challenge, medieval queens navigated the complex world of court fashion, while dealing with the practical limitations of medieval textile care and storage. They had to balance the political importance of appearance with the reality of maintaining elaborate costumes under challenging conditions. The intellectual responsibilities of medieval queens included staying informed about theological, philosophical, and political developments, while managing their personal health and comfort. This ongoing education was essential to their effectiveness as rulers and cultural leaders, requiring sustained mental effort and curiosity. As we approach the gentle conclusion of our journey through the authentic lives of medieval queens, we are reminded of their extraordinary resilience and adaptability. These remarkable women created meaningful lives and lasting legacies, while navigating challenges that would test anyone's strength and determination. The quiet courage of medieval queens offers timeless inspiration for facing our own daily difficulties with grace and purpose. Their stories remind us that every era presents its own unique obstacles, and that human dignity can be maintained even under the most challenging circumstances through dedication to duty and service to others. In the peaceful moments before sleep, we can draw comfort from knowing that generations of strong women have faced uncertainty and discomfort with wisdom and courage. Their experiences become part of our own understanding of resilience, offering gentle guidance for navigating our own challenges with similar strength and grace. Tonight, as you rest in comfortable surroundings far removed from the stone halls and flickering candles of medieval castles, you carry with you the inspiring example of queens who found ways to create beauty and meaning in their lives, despite significant limitations and difficulty. The soothing rhythm of historical narrative reminds us that time has always moved forward, carrying both challenges and opportunities for those willing to face them with courage and determination. The stories of medieval queens become part of our collective wisdom about living purposefully despite temporary discomfort. As you drift into peaceful sleep, surrounded by the gentle whispers of history, may you find rest in knowing that human strength and dignity have persevered through countless generations. The medieval queens whose stories we have shared tonight continue to inspire us with their quiet courage and unwavering commitment to their responsibilities and their people. Sweet dreams await you now, filled perhaps with images of those distant castle halls where remarkable women once walked, carrying their burdens with grace and leaving behind legacies of strength that continue to offer comfort and inspiration to all who hear their stories across the gentle passage of centuries.